Welcome back, Wonders. It's Naidra. Before we dive into the build guide for today, I just wanted to let you guys know I have a lot of respect for your time, and my primary goal when I'm making these videos is to make sure that I'm being as concise as possible as to let you guys get on your way and also get straight to the point. And so that said, for today, there is a special occasion that I wanted to quickly announce. I have officially been accepted into the YouTube Partner Program, and I couldn't possibly be more excited. And that's really all thanks to you guys and my subscribers as well. So thank you to those of you that have already subscribed. If you haven't done so, it would mean the world to me if you guys can go ahead and click that subscribe button so that I can continue to make videos like this. My next goal is to get to my 1,000 subscribers, and then after that to the moon. And speaking of meaning the world to me, I also wanted to quickly just shout out JJungie171, who is my first supporter and sent me my very first super thanks right after I became official with the YouTube Partner Program. So thank you so much for that. Now, without any further ado, for today's video, we're going to take a look at the newest build that I've been working with and have been having so much fun playing with. This has given me so much nostalgia as it has such a familiar playstyle and also feels very much like the Paladin from Diablo 2. While we don't yet have the Paladin, that is something that I've been hearing is currently in the works. And Blizzard, if you're watching this video, I just want to say, and I speak for the fans when I say this, I want to see a Paladin specifically. I don't want to see the Crusader coming back. I don't want to see the Monk unless you want to bring back more than one. We really want to see the Paladin. We also would love to see a dark Paladin-like character as well, but it would be so amazing to see that character coming back, as it was one of my favorite characters to play in Diablo 2. So what we're doing with this build is we're primarily using Toxic Skin as to utilize the damage output that we're getting from this, especially with the buffs that just came out with the mid-season patch, and we're pairing it up with Razor Wings for that spin to win type of a game style. So as usual, I'll take you guys into the pit so that we can take a look and see how this works. And then after that, we'll go back to town and we will take a look at our equipment, our skill tree, and all of that other good stuff as well. So with that said, let's dive right in. Quick disclaimer before we dive into it. I have not designed this build specifically for speed farming, so if you're looking for something that can handle speed farming really well, check out my Rushing Claw video that I posted recently. You can also check out my Evade build as well. Both of those can handle up to pit level 100 really easy, and then the Rushing Claw can go far beyond that as well. For this specific build, I created this mostly for the nostalgia of the Paladin character specifically. Unfortunately, Blizzard has not yet blessed us with the Paladin, but that is something that we're hopeful will be coming out soon. There's been a lot of speculation around that, but for now, we'll make do with what we have. The way that this specific build is going to work, as usual, we're going to activate our defensives. So we'll start with our Armored Hide, Scourge, and Counterattack. We'll then activate Toxic Skin before diving into the group of enemies using the Hunter, and then we'll eliminate everything around us with the Razor Wings. So let's go ahead and take a look and see how that works. We'll go ahead and start by grouping up some enemies here. Perfect. Dive in, and we'll start spamming away, and boom. Let's see if we can get another group here. Perfect. Dive in. Oh, I guess we didn't even need to dive in that time, but we still have that, so we'll jump in here. Perfect. And I'm not doing a very good job at grouping our enemies together, but if you do, that's going to take advantage of the Fel Soothsayer aspect and the area damage, which means we'll be able to take them down even faster. One more here. And as you can see, we're doing billions and trillions of damage as usual. And I had somebody comment asking what build doesn't do it. Well, I mean, it is a pretty OP build right now, and I can't complain for the additional damage that we're doing here. So again, if you're watching Blizzard, do not necessarily nerf the Spiritborn. We'd love to see all of the other characters get buffed so that we can keep up with this as well. There really isn't any point in creating a pit up to level 150 if nobody can handle getting to that point. So it would be really nice to see other characters getting boosted up to this level instead, so we can have a little bit of variety as well. All right, let's go back to town and take a look and see what's making this build work. Taking a look at our equipment, I do want to preface this by saying this build is not fully optimized. What I mean by that is there are a couple of pieces of equipment that I still have a little area of opportunity with, and I'll show you exactly where that is. However, it is still extremely effective, and I've been able to get through pretty much everything with what I currently have here. So starting off with our weapon, we've got the Whoosh Knock Paw, where for this guy, we want to put all 3 points of masterwork into Supremacy. Taking a look at our boots, we are using the duelist aspect as usual, where we're going to want to take dexterity, maximum life, and toxic skin for our stats, where if possible, try to get some that have a GA on toxic skin, and then we're going to masterwork all 3 points into toxic skin, as that's where our damage is coming from. So it's really important that we have as many of those as possible. For our tempers, we are taking barrier generation, and this is one of those pieces of equipment that still has some opportunity for me. I'm using the Rushing Claw boots, which I need to reset, but ultimately, once I can get that reset, it's going to be barrier generation and movement speed instead, so we can move through our pits and also our content a little bit quicker. Taking a look at our pants, we are using the interdiction aspect, and for stats, we're taking dexterity, maximum life, and armor. And then here, we want to try to get a GA on max life and armor if possible, but at the very least, we want to have it on armor, as we want to try to get as close to 5,000 armor as possible. That's the sweet spot that we're seeing, specifically if you're using the unyielding hits aspect, which for this build is extremely important to have in order to be able to do as much damage as we're doing. So we want to have a GA on the armor. For our tempers, we're going to temper on vortex size and maximum resolve stacks, and then masterworking all 3 points into maximum resolve stacks. Taking a look at our gloves, we are using the unyielding hits aspect and taking the maximum life, armor, and crit strike damage for the stats. And then we're going to temper on barrier generation and crit strike damage, where our masterworking should primarily all go into maximum life. If you are struggling a little bit with your armor, then you can masterwork your armor instead. But we want to have as much maximum life as possible, as utilizing the Gorilla Spirit Hall gives us a barrier of 5% of our maximum life. So the more max life we have, the more barrier we're going to get. And the more barrier we have, the more damage we're going to be doing as well. So try to maximize on your armor and also your max life, and not to mention that it's also going to help our survivability, specifically in regards to our max life. Now, taking a look at our armor, we're using the Shroud of False Death. All 3 masterworking points for this one should go into maximum life. And then for our runes, we are going to be using Yule and K, which allows us to invoke the Druid's Earthen Bulwark, and this allows us to have an additional barrier as well. Barrier equals damage, so barrier equals good. Next up, we have our helmet, which is the Shaco. For this one, we want to try to get one that's got a GA on cooldown reduction. Having that 49+% cooldown reduction is so extremely important for this build, and not to mention the +4 ranks to all skills. The +4 really specifically is helpful with the toxic skin portion. That's what's allowing us to do all of that damage. So really important we have that. If you don't have a Shaco, which by now most of you guys should already have one, but if you don't have a Shaco, you can replace it, but it will slow you down a lot, because then we're losing that cooldown reduction and we're losing that damage output. You may be just standing there waiting for your cooldowns, and that's never a fun experience. So that said, for our runes for this guy, we are using Bach and Cry rune. This is what's allowing us to invoke the Vortex, and because we're traveling all the time, this should be happening pretty frequently. So definitely make sure you have this on here, especially because Scourge does fear our enemies, causing them to run away. We want to group them up as much as possible, also allowing us to deal that additional area damage as well. Taking a look at our amulet, we have the redirected force aspect on here, where we're taking dexterity, total armor, and cooldown reduction for our stats. If you can get a GA on total armor as well, that would help you out a lot. That definitely would bring you to that 5,000 mark. Unfortunately, I'm not quite there yet, but this amulet does have more area of opportunity for me, as I am using the Rushing Claw charges for my first temper, and that is not what we want to have on here. This is where we want to have Razor Wings charges. We need to have about 15 charges or more in order to make sure that we're able to constantly sit there spamming, especially when we get to the bosses. I have not had a hard time defeating the bosses so far, but if you're planning on taking this into pit tiers that are higher than level 100, you want to make sure you have that. They have a lot more HP, so if you have less than 15 charges, you may find yourself sitting there waiting for your cooldown once again. So anything over 15 will be great. 18 is the sweet spot for this, so that's what I'm shooting for there. So now that said, for our tempers, we want to take Razor Wing charges, and we want to take maximum resolve stacks, where our masterwork will primarily all go into maximum resolve stacks. Taking a look at our rings, for the first ring, we're using the Fell Soothsayer aspect, where we're going to want to take Dex, Max Life, and Critical Strike damage for our stats, and then tempering on Crit Strike damage and Razor Wing charges. And then our Masterwork should primarily all go into Maximum Life. Unless you are struggling with those Razor Wing charges, you can add some Masterworking into that. That should definitely help you get to that 15 plus mark. However, if you've got it on both your amulet and your ring, you shouldn't have a problem with that, and you shouldn't have to waste your Masterwork on that specifically. And then finally, for our final piece of equipment, we've got the Wound Drinker, which we are going to masterwork all 3 points into Toxic Skin. If you're lucky enough to get one with GAs, we want to try to get the GA on Toxic Skin. The bottom part of this does not matter. We don't care about Thorns damage or gaining additional vigor, as we are not using any vigor. So even if you have a minimum roll with that one with just one, it'll still absolutely work. For the GAs though, if you can get 2 GAs on this, I would recommend getting the second one on damage to poisoned enemies. All of our enemies are going to be poisoned all of the time, so having that additional damage buff is going to be pretty helpful. Now, as far as our gems, we are using skulls in our amulet and rings to give us some additional armor. And then for our pants and weapon, we are using emeralds for additional dexterity and also for additional crit strike damage. That said, let's take a look at our skill tree. So starting off with our basic skills, we are not using any basic skills. So the purpose of putting any points into this is just so we can move on down to the next portion of our skill tree. So for me, I've added 4 points into Thunder Spike, taking it up to Enhanced Thunder Spike, and then Accelerated Thunder Spike. Again, we're not using this, so this really doesn't matter. But go ahead and move on down to the next part of the skill tree, which is core skills. We are not using any core skills either, and we really don't benefit from any of these passives. So we'll go ahead and skip on over to the next part of our skill tree, which is our focus skills. For our focus skills, we're going to go ahead and put 1 point into Vortex, taking it up to Enhanced Vortex, and wrapping it up with Measured Vortex. Although this is not going to be on our skill bar, we are using it via the runes, so it is important that we are adding these skills into Vortex. On the right hand side, we've got 1 point into Mirage, taking it up to Unrestrained Power for 3 points, and then 2 points into Swift, because our ultimate skill, which is the Hunter, is a mobility skill. This is going to help with the cooldown reduction for that guy. And then we will be taking as many points as humanly possible into Toxic Skin, and maybe inhumanly possible into Toxic Skin. Right now we have 23 points into this. It is possible to get even more if you're able to get a GA on your Wound Drinker, and if you are able to correctly masterwork your equipment. So we'll go ahead and put 5 points into Toxic Skin. We'll take it down to Enhanced Toxic Skin and finish it up with Measured Toxic Skin. Since the mid-season patch came through, the damage output for Toxic Skin has increased significantly. Before the patch, this was at 100%, which was equivalent to 1 million damage over 19 seconds. It has now been boosted up to 1.6 million, and that's when we're just sitting in town. And then on the left-hand side of the board, we've got 1 point into Focal Point and 3 points into Apex. We'll then move our way down to the defensive skills, where we'll take 1 point into Endurance and 3 points into Perseverance. And I'm sure this is going to be a shocker for you guys, but we are taking 1 point into Armored Hide, taking that up to Enhanced Armored Hide, and finishing it up with Reinforced Armored Hide. We then will take 1 point into Counterattack, going down to Counterattack Enhancement, and wrapping it up with Reinforced Counterattack. Finally, we'll take 1 point into Scourge and take it down to Enhanced Scourge. We do not really benefit from adding any additional points into the bottom points here. However, we also don't have any points to spare. Taking a look at our potency skills, we are putting 3 points into Resilient and 3 points into Dominant. All of our skills are considered guerrilla skills thanks to our Spirit Hall, so we will be taking advantage of this. And then on the right hand side, we are using Razor Wings. Now, Razor Wings is not what is dealing the damage, it's just a conduit for our Toxic Skin. So we don't need to put 5 points into this. We'll take 1 point into Razor Wings, 1 point into Enhanced Razor Wings, and finish it up with Invasive Razor Wings for 1 point there. And then we'll take 3 points into Potent and 3 points into Furnace. And then lastly, for our potency skills, we'll take 3 points into Ravenous and finish it up with 3 points into Oppressive. Moving down to our ultimate skills, we are taking 3 points into Resolution. We'll take it up to Spiritual Attunement for 1 point and finish it up with Supremacy for 3 points. And then we'll wrap up the ultimate skills with 2 points into the Hunter, taking it down to Harmonious Hunter and finishing it up with Exalted Hunter. And then for our key passives, we are going to be using the Noxious Resonance for this. There is a lot of crit strike damage that we're getting from this, so it's extremely important that we're taking it. And also it is going to contribute to our area damage as well. So really, really strong and really great for this build specifically. Next up, our Paragon board. So taking a look at our first board, we are taking the Colossal Glyph. And if you guys are at a higher level than I am, we also are going to eventually circle back and take the additional maximum life nodes down here at the bottom. We had to rearrange this a little bit just so that we can have some additional armor. However, we do want to circle back to this and grab these two. Moving on up to our second board, we're going to be taking the Sapping board, which we will be pairing up with the Spirit Glyph. For our third board, we will be taking the Viscous Shield board and pairing this one up with the Menagerist Glyph. Now, same thing here as the first board. Once you guys get to level 300, we do want to circle back and do a couple of things with this one specifically. We want to add the additional armor and max life nodes up on the left-hand side here. And then we also want to take the additional crit strike damage nodes up on the top. Unfortunately, we don't have enough points to be able to cover those right now, but once you get to level 300, you can take all of those and additionally the max life nodes from the first board. Jumping on over to our fourth board, we have the Convergence board, and we'll pair this one up with the Fester Glyph. And then for our fifth and final board, we will be taking the Revealing board, which we will pair up with the Bane Glyph. Now, you will notice there are some additional nodes that have armor that you can take. However, the one that's going to be most beneficial for us is going to be the one on our third board, because not only are we getting armor, but we're also getting some maximum life as well here. And those, as you already know, work hand in hand. So really important to have these guys. So those are going to be the most beneficial. If you guys found something else that might be more beneficial than this, feel free to leave a comment below and let me know so that I can experiment with that as well. All right, now then, our Spirit Haul. So I'm sure you guys guessed it, and it could have been a dead giveaway that I mentioned it a little bit earlier, but we are taking the Gorilla for our primary spirit. This gives us that additional barrier based on our maximum life, and also makes all of our skills Gorilla skills, which is what allows us to take advantage of a couple of our passives. And then we also will be taking Gorilla for our secondary spirit, as we can use as much maximum resolve stacks as possible, and plus the Unstoppable is helpful, but the resolve stacks is what's going to help us with our damage output, damage reduction, and also our dodge chance as well. So we want to have as much of this as we possibly can get. We're going to be taking Subo for our mercenary, and we'll take the Wire Trap skill down to Piercing Arrows. Then we'll make our way down to Cover Fire and finish it up with Opening Fire for that additional crit strike damage. And then for our reinforcement, we're going to take Rear. We will be taking Bastion, and that's going to trigger anytime we cast any skill in combat. That's all I have for you guys for today. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and joining me. I hope you guys enjoyed this build and also enjoyed this video. If you did, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment below. And then also just wanted to quickly let you guys know, I will be out of town next week for the holiday, so unfortunately I will not be able to post a video. But when I return, I have quite a few ideas that I'm super excited to work on and have been losing some sleep over trying to figure out how to make those things work. But I hope you guys have happy holidays, and until next time, Wanderers.